Hi there. I'm Linda. My life took a pretty unexpected turn when I married Tom. He was a great guy, a widower, with a sweet little girl named Sarah. She was 7 when I came into the picture, her mom having left when she was just a toddler. I walked into their lives hoping to make things better, to bring some love and stability. But, let's just say, things didn't go as planned. The first time I met Sarah, I remember trying to break the ice. "Hey, Sarah, I've heard so much about you. I brought some cookies. Do you like chocolate chip?" I asked, holding out a plate. She just stared at the cookies, then at me, with this look of total indifference. "I guess," she finally muttered, taking one, but avoiding eye contact. Tom smiled apologetically. "She's a bit shy around new people. Give it time, Linda." I wanted to be patient, to understand what she was going through. But it wasn't long before I noticed her coldness wasn't just shyness. Things got even more complicated when our son Danny was born. Sarah's behavior took a turn for the worse. She seemed to resent him, seeing him as a threat to her relationship with her dad. One evening, I found Danny crying in his room. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I asked, concerned. "Sarah said I'm a mistake and that Daddy doesn't love me," he sobbed. My heart sank. I confronted Sarah about it. "Why would you say something like that to Danny? He's your little brother." "He's not my brother. You're not my mom," she snapped back, her eyes defiant. Tom tried to mediate things, but it was like walking on eggshells. "Sarah, Linda's just trying to be a good mom to both of you." Sarah would roll her eyes. "She's not my mom. Don't forget that." It was tough. Every attempt I made to bond with her was met with resistance or outright hostility. And it wasn't just within our 4 walls. Her grandparents, Tom's parents, were another story. I remember one Sunday dinner, Tom's mom pulled me aside. "Linda, you need to try harder with Sarah. She feels left out since Danny came along." I was frustrated. "I've been trying, but she won't let me in. It's like she's decided to hate me no matter what I do." Tom's dad chimed in. "She's just a child, Linda. You're the adult here. You should make more of an effort." It felt like a no-win situation. I was trying my best, but nothing seemed to work. Sarah had built a wall around herself, and I just couldn't find a way through. As she grew into her teens, Sarah's behavior only got more challenging. She would flout rules, talk back, and her attitude towards me became more hostile. I felt like I was failing her, failing our family. But I wasn't about to give up. I just hoped that someday, somehow, we'd find a way to come together as a real family. Sarah's teenage years were like navigating a minefield. Every conversation felt like a potential explosion. I remember one morning trying to talk to her about school. "Sarah, why weren't you in school yesterday?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She just shrugged, pouring herself a bowl of cereal. "Didn't feel like going." "But your education is important," I persisted. "You can't just skip school whenever you want." Sarah rolled her eyes, a smirk playing on her lips. "What are you gonna do, ground me? You're not my mom." I felt a flash of frustration. "I'm not trying to replace your mom, Sarah. I just care about you." She scoffed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Yeah, right. You just want to make sure your perfect little family looks good." I was at a loss. How do you reach someone who's determined to keep you out? Tom, bless his heart, tried to bridge the gap between us. One evening, he sat down with Sarah, trying to have a heart-to-heart. "Sarah, Linda's just trying to help," he said gently. "She cares about you." Sarah's response was cold and bitter. "She's not my mom, Dad. Stop trying to make her into something she's not." Tom looked defeated, his usual optimism faltering. "I know she's not your mom, but she's part of our family now. We need to try to get along." Sarah just got up and left the room, her silence speaking volumes. Tom's parents were another hurdle. They seemed to believe that I could do no right by Sarah. During a family get-together, Tom's mom pulled me aside again. "Linda, you need to be more understanding of Sarah's feelings," she said, her tone implying I was being heartless. I felt my patience wearing thin. "I've tried, but she won't let me in. It's like she hates me." Tom's mom just shook her head. "She's a sensitive girl. You need to try harder." It was like talking to a brick wall. No matter what I said, it seemed to fall on deaf ears. They had made up their minds about me, and nothing I could say or do would change that. The tension in our house was palpable. Danny, who was just a little boy, often got caught in the crossfire of Sarah's outbursts. He didn't understand why his sister was so hostile. "Why does Sarah hate us, Mom?" Danny asked one night, his little face scrunched up in confusion. I hugged him close, trying to shield him from the harsh reality. "She doesn't hate us, Danny. She's just going through a tough time." But even I wasn't convinced by my own words. Sarah's behavior was more than just teenage rebellion. It felt personal, targeted. And I couldn't help but feel responsible, like I was the catalyst for all this discord. I lay awake many nights, wondering where we had gone wrong. Was there something I could have done differently? Some way I could have reached out to her that I hadn't thought of? The questions haunted me, but answers were nowhere to be found. The day I got the call from the local police station about Sarah, my stepdaughter, felt like a punch in the gut. I was in the middle of a meeting when my phone vibrated relentlessly. Excusing myself, I stepped out to answer what I assumed was another of Sarah's school-related issues. "Mrs. Johnson, this is Officer Martinez. We've detained your stepdaughter, Sarah. She's involved in a vandalism incident." The officer's voice was firm, almost disapproving. "Vandalism? Are you sure we're talking about the same Sarah?" I stammered, my mind racing. "Yes, ma'am. Sarah Johnson, 15 years old. We need you to come and pick her up." I felt a mix of anger and embarrassment. "I'll be right there," I replied, feeling the eyes of my colleagues on me as I hurried out. At the station, Sarah was slouched in a chair, her arms crossed, an air of defiance about her. She looked up as I approached, her expression one of annoyance rather than remorse. "Sarah, what in the world were you thinking?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. She rolled her eyes, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, relax, Linda. It's not like I killed someone. We just sprayed some paint. No big deal." I was aghast. "Not a big deal?" "Sarah, this is illegal. You could be in serious trouble." Sarah snorted, standing up. "Well, I'm not. Can we go now? This place is depressing." The car ride home was a tense silence. I knew this was a conversation for both Tom and me to handle, but with him away on a business trip, I felt overwhelmed and alone. That evening, with Danny asleep, I made a call to Tom. "Tom, we have a serious problem with Sarah," I said, my voice shaky. "I know, Linda, the school has called me a few times already." "What's happened now?" Tom sounded tired. "She was detained by the police today, Tom. For vandalism," I explained, the severity of the situation hanging heavily in the air. There was a pause on the other end. "Jesus, Linda. I don't even know what to say." "We need to get her help, Tom. Therapy, counseling, something. She's out of control," I urged, feeling desperate. Tom sighed, the sound heavy and defeated. "Okay, I'll be back in 2 days. We'll sort this out." I hung up, feeling a small sense of relief, but mostly dread for what was to come. When Tom finally sat down with Sarah to discuss therapy, it was like igniting a fuse. "I'm not going to any shrink," Sarah spat, her eyes blazing. "You can't make me." Tom, trying to remain calm, countered, "It's not about making you, Sarah. It's about helping you." Sarah laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "Help me? Please? You just want to dump me on someone else, because you can't deal with me." Tom's patience was wearing thin. "That's not true, Sarah, and you know it. We're worried about you." She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Save it, Dad. I'm not your little project. I'm out of here. And with that, she stormed out, the door slamming shut behind her. The next thing we knew, she was at her grandparents', refusing to come home or even talk to us. Tom and I were left in a state of shock and helplessness. Our family felt like it was falling apart at the seams, and at the center of it all was Sarah, a teenage girl we just couldn't seem to reach no matter how hard we tried. Things hit rock bottom the day Sarah decided she'd had enough of our rules and bolted to her grandparents. Tom and I were left in a state of shock and dismay, our family home feeling emptier than ever. Sitting in the living room, Tom kept glancing at his phone, the silence between us heavy and uncomfortable. I can't believe she'd just up and leave like that, he said, his voice a mix of frustration and disbelief. I exhaled deeply, feeling a storm of emotions brewing inside me. Tom, she's out of control. We can't just let her walk all over us. It's not right. Tom's expression was one of defeat. I know, Linda, I know. But what can we do? She's just not listening to us. Determined to get some answers, we decided to call Tom's parents. The conversation, however, quickly turned sour. Mom, this is Tom. We need to talk about Sarah, Tom began, trying to keep his voice level. His mom was quick to defend Sarah. Oh, Tom, she's just so distraught. She feels like Linda's pushing her away, trying to send her to a therapist like she's some sort of problem. I couldn't keep silent. That's not it at all. She's been getting into trouble, and we're worried about her. I snapped back, my patience wearing thin. Tom's dad jumped in, his voice bristling with irritation. Linda, you're just not understanding her. She's a delicate girl, and you've been too harsh. I felt my blood boil. Too harsh? She's been acting out, breaking laws. We're trying to do what's best for her. Well, she's staying here now. We'll handle it our way, Tom's mom retorted, her tone dismissive. Tom and I exchanged a look of frustration and helplessness. You're just going to let her skip school and hang out with God knows who? Tom challenged, his voice rising. She's just going through a phase. She'll settle down, his dad said nonchalantly, as if Sarah's behavior was no big deal. After the call, the sense of powerlessness was overwhelming. It was as if Sarah had everyone wrapped around her finger, and we were the villains for trying to impose some boundaries. In the following days, Sarah's absence cast a shadow over our home. Her room, untouched and gathering dust, was a constant reminder of the rift in our family. We sent money to Tom's parents for Sarah's expenses, but it felt like throwing money into a bottomless pit. There was no improvement, no change, just silent acceptance of her rebellion. One evening, as I tucked our son Danny into bed, his little face clouded with confusion. Mom, why did Sarah leave? Doesn't she like us anymore? I stroked his hair gently, fighting back my own emotions. Danny, it's complicated. Sarah's dealing with a lot right now. But we love her, and we're here for her whenever she's ready. Walking out of Danny's room, the weight of our family's situation hit me full force. We were a family torn apart, not by distance, but by defiance and misunderstanding. And at the heart of it all was Sarah, a girl I had hoped to embrace as my daughter, now a stranger living under another roof. For years, our house had been calm, almost too calm, without Sarah's tumultuous presence. Then, out of the blue, she showed up at our doorstep, her announcement as unexpected as her visit. Tom and I were in the kitchen when she walked in, a confident, almost brash look on her face. Hey, she said casually, as if she hadn't been away for years. Sarah, what are you doing here? Tom asked, surprise written all over his face. I've got news. I'm getting married, she declared, a smug smile playing on her lips. Tom and I exchanged glances, a mixture of shock and cautious optimism in our eyes. That's great, Sarah. Congratulations, I managed to say, though a part of me remained wary. Yeah, thanks. But here's the thing, Sarah continued, getting straight to the point. I need money for the wedding. Tom's expression hardened slightly. Money? Sarah, you haven't been home in years, and now you show up asking for money? Sarah rolled her eyes. Come on, Dad. It's not like you can't afford it. And it's not like I'm asking for much. I could feel the tension in the room escalating. Sarah, it's not just about the money. You can't just walk back into our lives and expect us to. Look, Linda. Sarah cut me off, her tone dismissive. I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm asking Dad for a favor. The audacity of her request left me stunned. Sarah, we're a family. We make these decisions together, I said firmly. Sarah scoffed. Please, you're not my family. You're just the woman my dad married. Tom intervened, trying to keep the peace. Sarah, that's enough. Linda's right. We're a family, and we make decisions together. She looked at Tom, her expression softening slightly. Dad, please. It's my wedding. I just want it to be perfect. Tom sighed, running a hand through his hair. We'll think about it, Sarah. But you can't just expect us to hand over the money without some discussion. Sarah's demeanor shifted then, as if realizing her approach wasn't working. I know. I'm sorry. I really want this to be special. After she left, Tom and I had a long talk. Maybe this is a chance for us to mend things, I suggested, hopeful yet cautious. Tom nodded slowly. Maybe. But we're not just writing her a blank check. We need to be involved in the planning, make sure the money is used appropriately. I agreed. Despite Sarah's brashness, this could be our opportunity to bridge the gap that had grown between us. Maybe, just maybe, we could turn a new page with her. But as I lay in bed that night, I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. Sarah's sudden return and request felt like just the calm before another storm. The days leading up to Sarah's wedding were a whirlwind of preparations. Tom and I decided to contribute generously to her wedding fund, hoping it would be a step towards mending our fractured relationship. But things took a shocking turn just a few days before the wedding. I decided to call the wedding planner to check on how the preparations were going. The conversation started off normal enough, but I could sense something was off. Hi, this is Linda Johnson, Sarah's stepmom. I'm just calling to check on the wedding preparations, I said, trying to sound casual. The wedding planner's voice was tense, hesitant. Oh, Mrs. Johnson, yes, the preparations are going well, but... But what? I pressed, a knot forming in my stomach. There was a pause, and then she said, I'm not sure how to say this, but Sarah, she's made some changes to the guest list. Changes to the guest list? What kind of changes? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The planner's voice was low, almost apologetic. She's removed you, Mr. Johnson, and Danny from the list. But she's added her biological mother. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Her mother? The one who left her? Yes, and there's something else. The planner continued, her voice hesitant. The budget for the wedding, it's significantly less than the amount you gave her. I was stunned into silence. Sarah had taken the money we gave her for the wedding and spent only a fraction of it, cutting us out of her big day in the process. After hanging up, I confronted Tom with the news. His reaction was one of disbelief and then growing anger. That ungrateful little... Tom started, his fists clenched. Tom, calm down, I said, though I shared his outrage. We need to talk to her about this. When we finally got Sarah on the phone, the conversation was anything but pleasant. Sarah, why did you remove us from the wedding guest list? Tom demanded, his voice tight with anger. Sarah's response was cold and matter-of-fact. Because I don't want your wife there. This is my day, and I'll have who I want. And what about the money? I asked, struggling to keep my composure. You spent only a fraction of what we gave you. That's none of your business, she snapped back. You gave me the money, it's mine to use how I see fit. We were at a loss for words. The audacity of her actions left us both reeling. Tom, in a rare display of fury, made a decision. "We're taking back our money, Sarah. We won't support this deceit," he said, his voice resolute. "You can't do that," Sarah yelled, her voice shrill with panic. "We can, and we will," Tom replied firmly. "You've crossed a line, Sarah." The call ended with Sarah hurling insults and accusations at us before hanging up. True to his word, Tom canceled the checks, effectively putting a stop to the wedding plans. We had tried to reach out, to mend bridges, but Sarah's actions had made it clear that some rifts were too deep to heal. The fallout from the canceled wedding hit our family like a hurricane. Sarah's response to our decision was both explosive and bitter. She showed up at our house, her face twisted with rage, hurling accusations and insults. "You've ruined everything," she screamed, her eyes blazing. "This was supposed to be my day, and you destroyed it." "Sarah, you lied to us," Tom countered, his voice firm despite the rising tension. "You deceived us about the wedding, about the money. What did you expect?" "I expected you to back off and let me have my day," she retorted, her fists clenched at her sides. "You excluded us from your wedding, Sarah. You took the money for yourself," I added, trying to reason with her. "Because it's what I deserved. After years of putting up with you," Sarah spat out, her words cutting through the air. The argument escalated until Sarah, in a final burst of anger, stormed out of the house, swearing she'd never forgive us. In the aftermath, Tom and I were left to pick up the pieces. The situation worsened when we received a call from Tom's parents. They were furious, initially blaming us for the wedding debacle, but then, their anger took a different turn. "Linda, Tom, we need to tell you something," Tom's mom said over the phone, her voice shaking. "After Sarah left our house, we discovered she took some of my jewelry. Valuable pieces." Tom and I were stunned into silence. "She stole from you?" Tom finally managed to say, disbelief coloring his tone. "Yes," his dad replied, the disappointment evident in his voice. "We never thought she'd do something like this to us." "Are you going to report it?" I asked, a mix of concern and shock in my voice. "No, we can't bring ourselves to do that to our granddaughter, but we're so hurt," Tom's mom said, her voice breaking. The revelation was a bitter pill to swallow. It was one thing for Sarah to lash out at us, but to betray her own grandparents in such a way was unthinkable. Days turned into weeks, and there was no word from Sarah. Tom held on to hope that she would come to her senses and reach out, but I wasn't so sure. "Tom, do you really think she'll come back after all this?" I asked one evening, as we sat in our quiet living room. Tom looked out the window, a far-off look in his eyes. "I don't know, Linda. I hope she does. I hope she realizes the mistake she's made and wants to make amends." I sighed, feeling a deep sense of uncertainty. "I don't know if she ever will, Tom. The Sarah we knew seems to be long gone." Tom nodded, his expression somber. "Maybe you're right. But she's still my daughter. I can't give up hope." As time passed, the silence from Sarah became a new norm. We heard nothing about her whereabouts or well-being. Tom's parents, too, were left in the dark, their feelings of betrayal mingling with worry for their granddaughter. In our home, life went on. Danny grew older, and we focused our energy on him, ensuring he felt loved and secure. But the shadow of Sarah's actions lingered, a reminder of the broken bridges and unhealed wounds in our family. I often found myself wondering about Sarah, about where she was and what she was doing. My feelings were a complex mix of anger, disappointment, and a faint glimmer of concern. Tom remained hopeful, but deep down, I doubted if Sarah would ever return to us, if she would ever seek the help she so desperately needed.